All right, welcome to the Books, Beards, Booze podcast, where we drink booze, have beards, and talk books. This is our weekly book battle episode, where we talk about what we're reading and writing currently, as well as a debate topic. I'm Bob of TalesbyBob.
And I'm Derek from the Abbey at Sarth.
Interesting. We are once more coming to you from the past or future. I get confused.
Because Bob's terrible with time.
Yeah, but as you are listening to this, we are probably in a layover in Dallas, coming back from Vegas.
That was Houston.
Houston on the way there, Dallas on the way back.
The more you know.
Yeah. Layovers in Texas. Woo! Fun stuff.
I don't like your definition of fun.
Well, we'll explore the airport. That'll be fun, right? Dallas, we're there for 2 hours. We'll get something to eat. Maybe get a drink. Get a little, we could get a mimosa.
Calm down, killer.
Ooh, it's always the right time for a mimosa. Take the edge off. Superfan Tanya will be with us. I'm going to try and coax her into buying all my mimosas for me. I'm counting on her to win some money in Vegas, because I sure as fuck ain't. But yeah. So, starting off, let's... normally we would do our chat from the Eagle and Child, where we talk about what we're reading and what we're writing, but we're going to be in Vegas in the future. We're not going to have time for reading and writing. So, don't know what we would be doing.
I don't know, maybe I can read on the flight.
Yeah, I mean, I may bring my Kindle, maybe. I don't know. So we decided instead that we were going to give you some recommendations on what our 3 favorite audiobooks that we've ever listened to were each. I haven't listened to a ton. Derek's listened to a lot more than me. But we figured, hey, this might be something useful. Some useful information for you out there that like them audiobooks, them audio productions of the Reedy books. So, how about you start us off as you're the resident expert?
Okay, well, we're going to start off with... There's plenty of good audiobooks, and after this one, I'm going to mention good audiobooks. This one is by far the best I've ever experienced, and if you only get one of the things I suggest, get this.
Okay.
Because not only is it probably my second favorite book I've ever read, it's also, again, like I said, the best audiobook I've ever heard. And that is The Lies of Loch Lamora.
Which is a really good book.
Which is an exceptional book. And
Love
if it were not for Patrick Rothfuss,
oh yeah,
it would be my favorite book probably I've ever read. Even better than Ender's Game, which had that for a long, long time for me.
Oh god, it's a school book, man. It's a school setting. Oh,
but,
so good.
Lies of Loch Lamora, and first of all, the book's fantastic, but there's a lot of I can't even remember what. I think it's either Spanish or Italian. I can't remember. I think it's Spanish. There's a lot of language that is not English. A lot of names.
I think it's Italian because it's Camorra is based on Venice.
Right. A lot of Italian. So there's a lot of words and names and of places and people that if I was just reading, I wouldn't have got them right.
Yeah.
And when you listen to it in the audiobook, it's so cool hearing the guy say them because he says them as they're meant to be said. Are you saying that
we might not pronounce a name correctly?
Yeah. Not us.
Not us. No, there's no way.
No. But
I'm impressed that we said Scott Lynch correctly.
Yeah. We didn't say Scott Lynch until right now.
Well, I'm impressed that...
You know why? It's because I can never remember if it's Scott or Stephen.
Oh, Stephen Lynch is the comedian. Yeah.
So I always get it confused.
Well, yeah.
And then I get it right, and I second-guess myself. But anyways, also, I should have looked up the narrator's name. I didn't do that for any of these. But the narrator, not only does he say the names and the words correctly, the characters in the book have a lot of experience as actors, whether or not everyone else in the book knows it or not. So... they basically put on performances for people. And one of the main characters is an exceptional actor, the Father Chains.
Yeah.
And when he reads Father Chains' he nails it. Like, he projects, and it sounds like he's this huge guy with a really booming voice and really rich accent. It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, it's the best I've ever heard.
Well, you started with your best. I'm going to start with my worst and work my way up. Black Company. It's it's kind of a gritty, darker kind of fantasy. It's definitely got its humor though. But the guy who reads it has kind of a deep, darker kind of voice to it, and it fit really well. Like I said, I haven't listened to that many. Actually, at first, when I first started listening to it, I was like, I don't know if I like this guy's voice, but it grew on me so fast, and I listened to several that he narrated, and they were all real good. So, yeah.
I think that I'll go with these. Okay, so this isn't a specific suggestion. It is a group of suggestions.
Okay.
Any of the Wheel of Time books.
Play hard and fast with the rules. Loose and fast
Hey,
with the rules.
you're the one that always gives me... I have 13 answers, and I'm like, I had one, because it was a question about one. But the Wheel of Times or Brandon Sanderson books, they're read by the same two readers.
Yeah.
I can't remember the names right now, but one is a man, one is a woman for the alternating points of view. And I just really like that they separate it like that. Makes it really easy to pick up on who the main character is when they switch.
Oh, okay.
Because anytime they switch between male and female, they switch the narrator, which I really like. And they're just good at their job anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my second.
Wizard of Earthsea is my number 2. The guy who did A Wizard of Earthsea, amazing. There may be other, there's probably like 8 different audiobooks of this, and I'm fucking up by not telling you who the one I listened to was.
Probably a lot of them,
but he was so good, and when I listened to the second one, Tombs of Antoine, different guy, and it was terrible. Like, I was so, like, that person, probably perfectly acceptable. If they'd done the first I'd been fine. Yeah. But after going from like this guy who was so amazing, like, booming voice, like when just the way he said "good," like, good, like it was. Oh god, I don't know. He was really good. He was awesome. So that was my number 2.
I'm changing my number 3 on the fly because I just remembered this was a thing. I don't own it, so I can't tell you the exact thing. But there's a collection of, I think it might be all, or maybe it's just a collection of Lovecraft. Short stories that is being collected and is done in an audiobook form through Audible, and the narrator is the guy who narrated the game Darkest Dungeon. Which if you guys have not played or heard, that just his voice.
I very rarely play games anymore. I don't play no motherfucking games. I very rarely play games anymore, and I had to get Darkest Dungeon. It was great. I love a good roguelike.
And the voice, it's so good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then him doing Cthulhu. Yeah. I haven't listened to it, but I've heard that it's fantastic. I really want to get it.
Nice. My number 1 is Cinder Spires.
Really?
Yeah. Did you listen to the audiobook of that? Okay. He does the voice of the cat.
Oh, yeah.
So good. So good. Cats talk, and he's just, like, if cats could talk, that's how they would fucking talk. Guy nailed it.
I couldn't decide if it was him that was doing it so well, or just the writing of the cat, because the writing of the cat itself was just fantastic.
But just the way he did the voice, it was fantastic. I loved it.
So that's a surprisingly high... That book, I really like that book.
Oh, yeah. I look to see when the next one's coming out.
I don't want to talk about
it. Like, I don't know, we'll get Doors of Storm before that. It looks
2082 or something.
Fucking stupid. Which is mind-boggling considering how quickly he turned out, all his other stuff.
I assume it's because
it seems like I mean, Cinder Spires is a lot more dense than the Jim Butcher, than fucking Stormfront, his first Dresden. Yeah, oh yeah.
I don't know, but as far as I know, they get...
Well, it's like, he's got multiple viewpoints and other things going here. Like, Stormfront is just, I'm Harry Dresden, I'm doing stuff.
It just didn't seem like Cinder Spire was that complex. I mean, there was a lot of things happening, but it wasn't like
it was
Jordan or
No, but it was...
I guess I mean
deeper than Butcher.
It's still...
It was also... it was pretty long.
I was curious, you've done the... What's his other ones? The Codex Alera. How dense are those?
They're more dense than Stormfront.
Well...
But I mean, that's...
I think you're just naysaying Stormfront.
I am naysaying Stormfront, but I've read a lot. Like, I've been reading a lot lately, and everyone's like, yeah, look, just get through the first couple of those, and I want to read them now
so that I can just give you crap, because you're
Mr. not going to like Stormfront.
But you're Mr. It's the plot, not the writing that matters.
100%. The reason they kept publishing those books is because of the plot and the idea behind it. It was not because of the fucking writing. Not that first book. Yeah, fuck that.
One of these days,
it wasn't that bad. I've worked it up in my head that it's a lot worse than it actually is. But it wasn't.
It's just because someone that you aren't a fan of liked them a lot. That's all it is.
Maybe. I'm not petty.
Didn't help.
I'm not petty.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what we got for some audiobook recommendations. Hopefully you'll go out and check some of those out. Hopefully you will use our Amazon affiliate links to go buy those. That'd be great. Support the podcast. All right, so we don't have a sponsor yet. I don't know. Maybe we'll be in Vegas and I'll get a phone call from Reed Herring or someone that's going to be like, "Oh man." Superfan Tanya is muttering in the background.
She said it's Red Herring.
No, it's Reed Herring.
I think a professor of mine actually did a reading there or something yesterday, and I missed it.
Yeah.
I didn't see about it until...
I feel like they got stuff going on, but yeah, I
need to check it out.
Maybe they'll be like, you know what, maybe Pies and Pints will be like, hey...
Yeah.
That's who we need a sponsor for. Anyway, so we don't have a sponsor, but if we did, it might be someone like this. Looking for a night in a remote, rustic castle you've always dreamed of having? Look no further than Castle Ravenloft. Lording over the hills of Barovia, the stately residence has been in the von Zarovich line for generations. Current Lord Strahd has recently begun allowing recently married couples to rent his home as a honeymoon getaway, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that you'd be a fool to pass up on.
Don't do it!
Yeah, I probably shouldn't do that. Alright, so this week's book battle is... What book would you recommend to someone who has never read fantasy before?
This is such a hard question.
It is.
I don't even really know how to approach it.
So here's what I think we have to set aside.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Obviously, the best way to do it is going to be to talk to them, find out what other books.
Right.
Like, oh, what do you like? Oh, you really like mysteries? Well, like if they're a huge mystery buff, I'm going to tell them to check out the Garrett P.I. series. It's mysteries set in a fantasy setting,
right.
Or the Talto series, stuff like that. So that would be best. But let's just imagine that we got picked the recommenders for the United States. Like we're it, and in my front yard, we have to put up a sign that's like, if you've never read fantasy, this is the book to read. So it's got to be the best choice that's applicable to the broadest number of people.
And this is tough.
It is.
Actually.
It is. So I will start because...
You see the pensive look on my face, and no, I don't have an answer.
Partly. And, this was really hard. Really, really, really hard. So, this is going to be super cliche, but...
That's kind of the point, though.
Yeah, but I am going to say... Well, I'm going to pull a Bob and give two answers here. But it's tied together. Either The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. So, if I could couch it with, are you younger? Hobbit. If you're older...
Give us two answers. One for younger and one for older, because that helps me, because I had...
Well, actually, if I'm straight up kids... Probably Harry Potter.
Okay, don't kids, but younger.
Well, here's the thing. God, it's just so hard. I'm just going to say Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings. No, I'm going to say The Hobbit.
Because
The Hobbit. Here's why I'm going to say The Hobbit. Okay, Tolkien more or less started fantasy. He's the bedrock that modern fantasy is based upon.
I was going to say, we'll say modern fantasy, because I may or may not have gotten chewed out for implying that exact thing in a class by a guy who kind of specializes in the study of
this. But there was definitely fantasy stuff going on before, but he's the bedrock of modern fantasy.
I think that's fair.
So, I'm going to go with The Hobbit for two reasons. One, it's a standalone book. I'm not recommending a trilogy to somebody. Mm-hmm. I think if you're going to recommend fantasy, you shouldn't recommend them a trilogy. Because it's like, really, for a trilogy or a series, you have to read all of it to get it to a degree. To get the entire vision of what the author was going for. So, a standalone. So, The Hobbit is standalone. If they like it, they can then jump into Lord of the Rings.
I disagree already with that.
Okay.
Because they don't feel the same at all. Like, The Hobbit is written...
Well, yeah, but that's my other point. The other point is it's not as dense. The Hobbit is a lighter read than Lord of the Rings. And if someone who's never read fantasy before, I don't want to scare them off. I want them to... It's like one of those deals like... Some people, like when... if the pool is really cold, some people, you just jump right in. And it's cool, but you know what? That can stop your heart. You could die.
See, my argument would be that's why you're wrong, and my answer is correct.
But I would like to say that you ease them into it. You start with The Hobbit. If they like that, you can be like, oh, okay, you liked that? Well, what did you like about it? Mm-hmm. Like, if they liked the world building side of things, well, dive right into Lord of the Rings. It's only going to get better, But if they were like, well, I just liked it because it was fun, I might not recommend Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is not really a fun read. I'd be like, oh, well, are you a mature adult? Go read Grunts, because it is best.
No, it is not. That would literally end anyone's fantasy reading career.
Depends on the person. I don't know. Bane had basically never really read fantasy, and one of the first things I got him to read was Grunts, and it was great.
That is a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, it is. But no, so I would go with The Hobbit. You got to think it's got to appeal to the broadest number of people. Mm-hmm. So that has the best chance of appealing to a broad number of people while laying a good foundation. Then it'll be like, okay, well, if you liked that, you'll probably like modern fantasy, and we can go from there.
And that's why the correct answer is magician. Because it has all the tropes of classical fantasy. It's got the elves,
is it
it's got
magician
the dwarves.
or magician apprentice?
I'm saying magician.
So you're putting it together as one book.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be like this thick. It's going to be like a book in...
You'd say that, but not really. It's about a 600-page book. Because the first two are like 300.
Yeah, it's mighty thick.
I mean, you want me to go with just Apprentice? I'll still go with just Apprentice.
I was asking for clarification.
Yeah, because here's why.
Your answer's your answer.
Here's why.
It's wrong. But
no, it's not. It's the correct answer. But see, because has the traditional stuff. It's got the boy becoming a hero. It's got a little bit of dragon. It's got elves. It's got dwarfs. So it kind of eases you into the most prominent classical fantasy tropes.
Yeah.
But since which might be a little cliche to us, but when it's the first thing you've read in fantasy, it doesn't feel cliched at all.
Right.
So you get that. The prose is surprisingly good without being overcomplicated at all. It's very quickly paced. I mean, it doesn't waste any time. It goes right into a story. Has enough characters to have a cast without overwhelming you, because only a couple of them are actually viewpoints.
I guess the biggest problem is Pug's kind of a little punk bitch.
He kills a troll in the first 100 pages.
Punk bitch.
2 trolls.
Punk bitch.
And then almost kills a guy who's trying to fight him because he's just upset that the princess likes him more.
Pug didn't kill this troll.
I kind of wish he did.
That's fair. That's fair.
But I think I felt weird about saying that because that is what I started.
But here's the problem with that. Mm-hmm. If you start with that, then they're going to wind up at Darkness of Seth Annan and be just disappointed.
No, because that was still a good book.
What was the last one? Darkness of Seth Annan?
The last of the 4 books.
Yeah.
It was still good. It wasn't as good as Silverthorn, and it wasn't good as Magician.
Like that series gets gradually worse.
Nah. Darkness of Seth Annan had a siege in it.
Of the ones that you really like, I would almost recommend Assassin's Apprentice before.
Oh no, I very seriously considered that, but it doesn't have elves, it doesn't have dwarfs, it doesn't have the classical fantasy tropes that I was trying to ease you into. Otherwise, that was another thing, as I was going to say, that would have been, if I knew that you were already a reader, I might have tried that one.
Well, also it's first person.
Yeah. That was something I was taking into consideration, which usually works better with what is it, teenage? What's young adult. But some of the themes in it isn't super for young adult.
Yeah, it's a little.
But it makes it really easy to connect with the character.
I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's why I thought of it, because it's one of the first ones that I read and I really like it. It doesn't, but I think Magician's the right answer because it has the tradition. Because when you think
it's the less right answer.
It's the right answer because no, you're wrong because Lord of the Rings is too dense and Hobbit doesn't have enough. Well, no, I think it's probably Hobbit's okay.
Hobbit's great, and also like I think part of it is like even if they haven't read fantasy, they've heard fantasy stories over the years. You know,
which
like
is why
fairy tales and stuff like that. And the Hobbit has a little like, especially with like how Gandalf beats the trolls, like that reads very much like a fairy tale.
My thing is, I think that's probably the better answer between that and Lord of the Rings. When you mentioned, if you had said Harry Potter, I probably would have strangled you. Because I think it's very good, but if we're trying to, it's not exactly like most other fantasy. So, like, my whole thing is, I was looking at it from a perspective of gateway into the world at large with fantasy. That's kind of its own thing, because I don't remember, it has elves, but not really. It doesn't have dwarves, or it does, but not really. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's almost like urban fantasy.
Yeah,
almost.
Which was my thing, is I was thinking of it more trying to get into the modern era.
Yeah.
That was my thing. And I feel like if I just suggested just magician, that's an entire story done.
Alternate answer. Mm-hmm. Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
I did read that before I read Magician, and I thought it was pretty good, but that is what I would suggest if we were legitimately suggesting for a young readership.
Yeah. If
it was more of a teenage, full-grown person first fantasy novel, I would still stick with Magician. Or maybe if it was an older person, maybe even Assassin.
Yeah.
But then again, it doesn't have the I want it to have the elves and the dwarves, even though that's not my favorite type of fantasy.
Well,
I feel like
is best.
You're wrong, but high elves are best because they.
Yeah. Huh. All right. Well, so that was inconclusive. Except that it wasn't because I was right. But
no, not wrong.
So I don't know.
You can't either really go wrong.
Either one would be a good choice, I would say.
Here's my last point for why I'm right. Because if you did like it and wanted to read more, you would be moving from.
It'd be less of a jarring.
Right. Yeah. It'd be a more consistent flow through.
What about recommending Name of the Wind?
Name of the Wind is too much not your traditional fantasy for me to want to. I mean, it's the best there is, but again, like I said, I want to go with the elves and dwarves.
Yeah.
I want to introduce people to a richer type of the thing they already know exists. Because even if you haven't read fantasy, you know of elves and dwarves most likely.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? I think that's
thanks to The Hobbit.
I would say thanks to Lord of the Rings, but
more or less same thing.
I have strong feelings about that. I don't think it's the same thing. And I think they're very.
Well, I mean, they both.
Same guy, same world.
Hobbit introduces.
Yeah, I mean they do. Because I actually liked The Hobbit, and I couldn't even get through the first Lord of the Rings. But we'll go back and try that.
You're wrong.
I'm not.
All right. Anything else you want to add on that book battle?
No, I'm pretty sure I made the point that I'm right and you're wrong.
Well, if you would like to, we would love to hear who you think won that, Bob. So to do that, you should drop us an email at booksbeardsbooze@gmail.com. You can also just search Books, Beards, Booze on Google, and you'll find us. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We have a blog. We have all sorts of goodies. We put up content all the time on the blog.
Definitely go to the blog.
Yeah. All the time.
If you're not going to the blog, you're really missing out.
Yeah, that's where we announce all of our short read tall glass stuff. We do book reviews every week. We let you know when the podcasts are up. Do a ton of stuff on there.
Occasionally talk about liquor.
Yeah, so definitely check out the blog. But barring that, just keep listening to the podcast and go forth and grow a great beard.